Psylocke is diving in. And I don't know if you guys play dive, but you can imagine if you're diving or if you're low and you get a mag bubble, that can be absolutely game changing, right? Like it can actually just win you the game if you're bubbling your DPS. If you guys have the same composition, you have a Wolverine, their enemy team has a Wolverine and a mag, but you're bubbling your Wolf and their enemy mag is not doing that consistently. Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to be giving you a no BS, extremely helpful guide on how I got to top 500 in season 2.5, primarily on Magneto with this sick skin. I'm going to jump right into it. So the number one tip is taking space, and the value of this as a tank as well as just overall positioning. So you're going to see some background gameplay. Whenever you are playing a tank, it's very important, especially on this role over other roles, that you take space for your team. Now, whenever you take space for your team, your supports, your duelists, you're going to enable them more. So if you were to just kind of sit on point, you can imagine you kill the enemy team, you sit on point, there's so much free space between the enemy's spawn and point where you could move up to on a domination map, for example, that you could easily be taking, because the enemy team's dead, they're respawning, you could walk up. And the benefit of this is, one, to give your supports more space to kind of survive, but also more space for your duelists to be able to attack, as well as for you to attack. And taking fights early like this is really helpful because it allows you to force out the enemy utility, important enemy utility, for example, like Loki runes or just ultimate abilities in general, because if you have them locked, stalemated right near, closer to their spawn, they're just going to need to use something to get out if they can't. And I was smurfing with, playing just with a friend on an alt account, and they were telling me how much easier games are because of how I take space. So another difference is just positioning. So this is, taking space is positioning, but sometimes, you'll win a couple team fights, and then because you're lower rank, you keep pushing, and you don't know when the difference is to come back, right? So you really want to know when you should be taking a step back, and it's what we call kiting in high ranks. So people kind of have this intuition of when you should be kiting backward. Generally, when you want to, kiting is just whenever there's a lot of enemy damage or an enemy ability like invisible woman ult, and you just want to kind of kite backward. You want to kite backwards because there's a low probability that you're going to be winning that fight. It's a low, you have low advantageous fight, so you want to kind of kite backwards. And there's a lot of ultimates that would cause you to do this. You can kind of think about it. Invisible Woman ult, Luna ult, Punisher ult, and a variety of other ones. But those are just some examples, especially for this season, that might cause you to want to kite back a little bit. And if you think about it, if you're taking a lot of space and you're pushed beyond point and you have point presence on a domination map and you're kiting back, you're just kiting back to point. But if you're on point and the enemies are ulting, and you need to kite off of point, then they're going to have presence on the point, capture, and have a higher chance of winning that point and round in game. So hopefully this makes sense, guys. I can explain this further in another game if you like this tip a lot. So the next really important tip is going to be revolving around Magneto's bubbles and shield. This is really the reason why Mag is so incredibly strong this season. It is his ability to provide peel and support for his teammates, as well as potentially himself sometimes, but mainly for his teammates. This almost kind of makes Mag a support tank. He really kind of acts like it, so he's kind of almost like a hybrid, but he can also do a lot of damage. So the tip with his bubbles and shield is to just try to save them for the right times. You'll notice that a lot of higher Magneto players, as well as myself as of recently, tend to try to save their bubble and utility for the right time. So an example of this might be, your Black Panther or your Psylocke is diving in, and I don't know if you guys play dive, but you can imagine if you're diving or if you're low and you get a mag bubble, that can be absolutely game changing, right? Like it can actually just win you the game if you're bubbling your DPS. If you guys have the same composition, you have a Wolverine, their enemy team has a Wolverine and a mag, but you're bubbling your Wolf and their enemy mag is not doing that consistently. That is going to completely change how the game goes if your Wolf has any presence whatsoever, right? He can't be stunned, he can't be pulled when he's grabbing people. It's really annoying to deal with. You can bubble anything that dives. You can bubble anything at all. Sometimes you're going to want to just play a little bit more passive and wait for the enemy team to dive your supports. You'll notice Your cue to do this may be whenever your supports are whining or crying, or they might just politely ask you to, hey, can you guys give me some peel in the backline or some support? And this is where you'd say, okay, I'll look to bubble you and when you're getting dove by BP or whatever, right? So if they're getting dove, try to just quickly turn around, bubble whoever's lowest, whoever's you think is most likely to die, and then turn back around and continue maintaining space and presence in the front line for your team. This can be difficult because, you know, you're turning around quickly, but you're also needing to kind of maintain the front without dying. As far as the shield, something big that you want to do with this is try to eat abilities that are high in damage. Some examples of this, probably the biggest example of this season is going to be Iron Man ult, except we'll talk about that with Magneto's ultimate in a second. But you can eat that with the shield, and you can also eat other ults like Black Widow ult. But mainly just using your shield kind of, so the thing with Mag Shield, if you guys don't know, is it can eat an infinite amount of damage. It just has a shorter duration now. But you really want to try to use it to get out of position teammates back, especially a tank, for example, who might be a little bit far forward. You can kind of walk forward and shield them. You can kind of say back, 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 or kite, 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 right? And then kind of like that first tip that we learned, walking in front of them, shielding, and getting them back to safety so they can be healed, and you guys can stabilize, reset, and get ready for the next fight. The next tip is about Magneto's ultimate ability. So what you're going to want to do is save your ultimate ability on Mag a lot of the time for specific enemy characters' ultimates. For example, a good example of this season is an Iron Man ult. The nice thing about this is it really charges your ult up, but it also completely cancels out or negates the Iron Man ult. It can be a little tricky to time, but once you get used to it, it's quite easy. You just kind of have to, the main thing is you have to know when to ult track, or you have to know when he has his ult, so you can kind of position around him, because if you're not near him, you're not going to be able to eat the ult. But if you're like right on top of him, you're going to be able to eat it very easily, and then quickly throw your ult back down to kill someone. Other ults I find myself trying to counter with Mag ult is especially Cloak ult. It's much easier to kill. If they get a bubble, it's a little bit trickier, but oftentimes, especially in ranks below One Above All or Celestial, they're not really going to get bubble too often. But even in Celestial, sometimes the bubbles will be poor timing, so you can kind of still get away with it. But if they do get bubbled, you're just going to want to probably ignore them and look for a kill on another squishy, which is completely fine. It's just something you need to learn to adapt to. Another ult that's really good to counter with Mag ult is Luna ult. So the way Luna ult works is that Luna, as soon as she pops her ult, she gets a huge amount of shielding, so you don't want to ult her straight away. Good Lunas will actually pop their ult right as you're throwing your meteor down. So if you know Luna has ult, don't use it before she ults, use it after she's ulted for like 2 or 3 seconds, so that her shielding is mostly gone, and that you can one-shot her if you have enough of a meteor, if you have a big enough charge on your meteor. There's also other ults. You can just counter anyone. It's good to counter like Ultron ult or Human Torch ult, or, you know, there's a lot of things. Punisher ult is a very hard counter as well. Just make sure you're kind of thinking about this. And another thing with Mag ult is make sure you don't let your ult charge go above 100. So, I mean, whenever you're ulting, make sure you don't let the meteor charge go above 100 so the rock breaks. That's something to think about. So whenever, especially you're counter ulting a Punisher ult, that thing can destroy your ult very quickly. So try to, you know, you're gonna ult and then you're gonna throw down very quickly after you ult. So hopefully that makes sense. So the next tip is going to be about knowing when to be flexible as a tank or just as a player in general. So oftentimes you're going to be playing Mag and you're going to be losing the game, right? You can't win every game. Even after watching this video, you might be a little better, but you're still going to lose games. You're going to be in losing positions. I'll be in losing positions eventually, right? And what you're going to want to do is hit tab, ask yourself, is this team composition best for Magneto? And even if it's not best for Magneto, because Magneto's good into a lot of comps, right? It's very hard for Mag to be bad, especially in this current state. It's just incredibly strong. But you have to also ask yourself, you know, is there something better that I can be playing right now that would help my team come even closer to winning? So, you know, maybe you have 2 tanks and you guys have, a common example of this might be, you guys have 3 tanks, 1 DPS who doesn't do a lot of damage, and then 2 heals. You might want to go DPS. A more common example of this is you'll have 2 tanks, 2 DPS, and then you'll have 2 heals, but one of the heals is a light healer like Ultron. Ultron does good heals, but he just does them slowly over time. So that's a scenario where if you're realizing, like, okay, I'm dying pretty fast here, you'll have that quick intuition to be like, okay, I'm just gonna go support for this round or whatever, right? Or for this game. And it doesn't, I'm not telling you you have to be a support player. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm never gonna swap support. But the reality of it is, my rank up game, the top 500, I played support. If I go to my history, I played Luna the final game, and that was because I needed to flex onto that for my team. If I didn't do that, there was a good chance we lose. My team was giving up, and I was like, no, we can win this, we can win this. So I swapped, and we won. And yeah, that's gonna take us to our next tip, which is mentality, right? So mentality is really important in this game, in competitive. I would say like 50%, if not more, of the challenge in ranking up in Marvel Rivals is simply just a mental battle. The amount of games you're going to encounter which your team is given up or just toxic or complaining or anything else like that is unmatched. You're going to have so many games like that, and the only thing you can control is what you realize is yourself, right? And so, I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like, some games are just gonna suck, some games are just gonna lose, but the real thing that separates, in my experience, that those players from, really good top 500 players is your ability to shake that game off and continue playing. So if you take that energy into the next game and you pass it on to your next team, your odds of winning go down, and sometimes they go down significantly, because that energy is very contagious. If you have an energy about you that's like, oh, I really want to win, we got this, guys, and you're like shot calling, and sometimes I get it, like, you don't have the energy to do that or whatever, but if you're like shot calling where your position is, where your team should be positioning, and you're like, all good, no worries, we got this, right? And throughout the entire game, not just at the very beginning, that's going to make a significant difference in the positive direction for your chances of winning. So yeah, mentality is really important. Make sure that's something that you're aware of. I can't state how important that is. I'll make an entire separate video on that as well if you guys want. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any thoughts or comments in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Peace.